Welcome to Off the Post. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Anthony Mangione. And how are you?
I'm happy we're in the NHL Final Four here, Russ. It's pretty exciting times.
It is. It is. I'm tied with you for record. Mike is below us. I don't know if Mike's going to be able to overcome that, but that's all right. He doesn't need to win anything. And we have Michael Jello. Mike, how are you?
Sure, I will. When you idiots pick Edmonton and I pick Dallas, I'll catch up to you right away.
And we have special guest Tom Gazzola from Edmonton Sports Talk, and he does the CFL coverage on TSN. Maybe one day I'll talk about Ricky Ray's 10 minutes with the New York Jets. Tom,
yes. Oh, Russ, thank you. I always wondered about that mysterious.
I was at the game. I was in Indianapolis for that game. It was weird.
Oh man,
and he was good. There was no reason not to sign him. He was really good. I was mad.
Hey, Ricky Ray, he's a legend up here in Edmonton, and I always wondered about that because I guess his release was just like a fraction of a second too slow for NFL standards, and then he came up.
Baloney. He looked good in that game. I was excited to see him. So anyhow,
but
let's talk about an exciting team, the Edmonton Oilers, who maybe have now hit their stride. There's one thing, Tom, two things that I've noticed that I'll bring up right away that really favor Edmonton a little bit. The first one is Ottinger's been good against Edmonton, but not great. Like his .907 save percentage is not great. He's got a much better save percentage against other teams. And Dallas does give up a lot of high danger chances. What's your feeling on that?
We were talking about this today, actually, on our station, and we're like, is Ottinger an elite goalie in the NHL, or is he just at that next caliber below? And I always think of him and Thatcher Demko kind of on the same plane. I know Demko being banged up in Vancouver, that's tough, and you feel bad for that weird knee injury that he's been dealing with. But to me, Ottinger is still an excellent goaltender. Edmonton doesn't seem to be put off by Jake Ottinger in particular. They got to him last year. In the regular season, he's given the Oilers fits, but Edmonton doesn't do things the easy way ever, especially against Dallas. I think, especially 5-on-5, Edmonton has been so good. So if Dallas is giving them great opportunities and nice looks at Ottinger, I think for the most part, I'd put my money on Edmonton bearing some goals. It'll come down to special teams, and we'll see what Ottinger does in net. I know they're going to need him. Dallas will, if Edmonton's power play starts to wake up. Edmonton found a way to get to Darcy Kemper, and there was a lot of discussion around here about, they're going to face Darcy Kemper, who's a Vezina caliber goaltender this year. Can they beat him? They did. They get to Aiden Hill, who beat the Oilers a couple of years ago in the second round en route to the Stanley Cup. And they got to him after getting past the Sequoias, that is the Golden Knights defense. So goaltending-wise, there aren't a lot of guys in the NHL that I think strike fear in the hearts of the Edmonton Oilers. And I think Jake Ottinger falls into that large category of goaltenders who are pretty damn good, but Edmonton's not too worried about them.
Tom, none of those American goaltenders can stop a puck. So
they're so good.
Yeah. Now, switching over to the Edmonton side of the hemp hut, Stuart Skinner started off brutally against the LA Kings, and then Calvin Pickard came in and did his best Terry Sawchuk imitation before getting hurt. And now Skinner has sort of regained his composure like he did last year. Because if people don't remember, Skinner, had some issues, and Pickard came in, and then Skinner went in again. Do you think that Skinner has his head straightened out, and where do you see the confidence of the Oilers in him going into this series?
Yeah, I'll start with the confidence, Mike. I think both goalies, Edmonton, the players are okay with them. They're another thing that gets discussed. You guys know how it is in this market. Everything gets dissected crazily.
Edmonton's not Toronto, Tom. Come on.
Well, that's a different planet. Trust me. I mean, it gets crazy here, but Toronto's on a whole different. You want to talk about a different plane?
Edmonton's like Newmarket compared to Toronto.
Yeah, sure, exactly. A lot of paisans in Newmarket. So with Skinner, I think both goalies, the Oilers, the guys, the skaters in front of them, feel okay. There was talk here that people seem to believe that the Oilers look more confident, or they play better structurally in front of Calvin Pickard. I don't necessarily buy that. We've got a couple of former Oilers here at our station. Joaquin Gage, former Oilers goalie, and Sean Bell, former Oilers defenseman, that, you know, they kind of disagrees. The one guy thinks that the goaltending when Pickard's in net, the players play a little bit different in front of him than when Skinner's in net. The other guy thinks the opposite. I honestly think that they don't care which goalie's in net. They're going to play the same way. Now, what happened to Skinner in the first 2 games against LA was, A, he couldn't make a save to save his life. B, the defense and the forwards in front of him were atrocious. The 10 bell chances, opportunities that Skinner faced were, you know, you'd have to be Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, or one of those guys to stop some of those the looks that LA was getting. But you know, they had to switch something up. They went to Pickard. Pickard wasn't amazing. Like, Pickard made timely saves where Skinner didn't in the first 2 games, but Pickard let in some bad goals too, where you looked at him, you're like, what was that? And, you know, we say he's probably the best street hockey goalie on the planet right now with the style he plays, Calvin Pickard. But it gave Stu Skinner enough time to reset, refocus, maybe a little bit of reflection back to last year against Vancouver, where he sat out a couple games and came back and was excellent for Edmonton the rest of the way through. And then, you know, he had an okay return game in game 3 against Vegas. And then game 4 and 5, he really did shut the door and has, you know, breathed new confidence into the fan base. And then, you know, the guys in front of him, again, probably are like, okay, good, he's making the saves. Let's go do our thing.
Speaking of the guys directly in front of him, I mean, one of my biggest concerns going into the playoffs was, you know, the Oilers had lost Matthias Ekhom. Mm-hmm. And that was, you know, when I picked, it was tough for me to pick in that series for Edmonton because of the fact that, you know, so much seems to revolve around how good Ekhom is. Tom, talk to me about what the Oilers have done in front of their goaltenders collectively. I look at Bouchard, I see his numbers, but what is it about them collectively defensively that's allowed them to be able to beat two really good opponents before getting here to the Western Final?
Yeah, Anthony, I'd say the way they possess the puck in their own zone, there's a calmness to them. There wasn't that in the first 2 games against LA. Like, those were bad games. The players were saying they felt they were playing regular season hockey in games 1 and 2 against the Kings. And then from there, they cleaned it up, and that carried into the Vegas series. So their possession, you'll notice if they're on it today, smart and crisp plays with the puck. It's not sitting in their own zone for too long. The only time that they generally get stuck in their own zone and with the puck on their sticks is if they're regrouping and waiting for a play to set up or a line change or something like that. So when they're on it, they're moving the puck efficiently. The passes are tape to tape. They're not taking stupid icings. That's something that plagued them throughout the regular season. And the other thing too is they got to defend well, and they seem to clean up the way they check in front of their goalies in the playoffs. And that includes Evan Bouchard, who was, you know, pretty bad most of the season in his own zone. It continued into that first round series against LA. I mean, we're talking going into like game 4 and 5 against the Kings. Evan Bouchard could be the factor that puts the Kings over the edge or puts the Oilers over the edge. He was the most important player on both sides. That's how at one end of the rink he was excellent offensively, and then on the other side of the ice he was absolutely atrocious. So he's cleaned up his game. And then the one thing that has really emerged that has surprised a lot of people when it comes to the Oilers is the pairing of Jake Wallman and John Klingberg. Yeah, John Klingberg looked bad in his games starting, I think, late January when he got into the lineup finally after being signed. He did not look good. He looked like he was done. And I'm talking done, like NHL career overdone. And
I kind of thought he was.
Oh, yeah. He was slow. He was getting beat like a turnstile. Like, it was not good. Then they insert him into the lineup in the playoffs, and all of a sudden he looks like the guy that was on the Stars in 2020. I mean, you want to talk about smart plays with the puck. John Klingberg has kind of led that charge, and I think it helped calm down Jake Wallman, and they've seemed to have found a groove together. And then Darnell Nurse had a kind of a spotty start to his postseason after a really good bounce back regular season, and Darnell has kind of cleaned up. And then I'll say another name that doesn't get a lot of love because the way he plays doesn't really jump out at you, but he's been very efficient all season long in his time as an Oiler, is Brett Kulak. Just super consistent. If the Oilers are having a bad night defensively, Kulak is usually an indicator. Like, if he's having a tough go, then usually the rest of the Oilers defense and the team in general are having a tough go. But when he's on, it's steady, it's calm, cool, collected, and he's kind of like the indicator on this team, I think. And there's been a lot of good nights for Brett Kulak. So he quietly goes about his business, and he's been good. Troy Stetcher is the other D-man right now. He kind of took over for Ty Emberson after the Oilers' 6-game playoff winning streak was snapped. Stetcher's small. He'll do everything he can to help you win games, but he gets bounced off the puck a lot. He'll take a lot of hits, but he'll try to do anything he can to make a play. He's heart and hustle. And you'll see probably tonight he won't play that many minutes, but those other 5 guys have been pretty good. At least they were in that entire Vegas series, and we'll see if that continues against Dallas.
Is there an idea yet of when Ekhom might get back in?
Okay, so he is skating, which is good, but he just started skating on his own about a week and a half ago. Today he was on the ice for the morning skate, a good indication, but I was told last week, and I put it out there on X and Twitter, I said he's a couple weeks away at best. So he's been ruled out for games 1 and 2. We'll see if he's good to go by Sunday, but I still have my doubts. And by all indicators, like his injury, some people have said it's similar to Kelly Yarncroke's or slight differences, but it took Yarncroke a lot of time to get back too. And I know that Matthias Ekhom hasn't played since April 11th, but he played a couple minutes in that last game when he was coming back after missing a few weeks, and he fell down on his own a couple of times in the minute and a half he played. He did not look good. So I'm tempering expectations, and I don't know, like, if you get Matthias Ekhom back mid-series, if that's truly the most aggressive timeline for him, you might be getting him at like 50%, 60%, and how detrimental could it be for next season? But for the Oilers right now, guys, it's about winning the next month here.
Well, no doubt. My last one for you, Tom, is you need guys out there in these big games who don't make mistakes. Adam Henrique certainly is one of those guys. But I want to know, when did he become this face-off specialist? Like, I'm looking at his numbers. They're ridiculous. He's at 70% one game.
Yeah, Henrique, his offensive production this year dipped big time. There were a lot of nights where you'd watch him and you'd be like, where the hell was Adam Henrique tonight? And he'd have, 14 minutes. He'd be on the PK a little bit. They reduced him basically to a third, fourth line role, where he came in last year at the deadline, supposed to bolster up the top 6, which he did. But they kind of asked him to take on more responsibility, and he's done that this year. And I think being a good NHL veteran, he's put in the time to work on those little things to prolong his NHL career. It did help him get that contract extension with the Oilers. And yeah, this year is really where his game has evolved. And he talked about it early in the season. We'd ask him, what's going on with your offense? But it seems like you're focusing on other things. And he goes, it's been an interesting transition because I've been relied upon to provide offense, especially in Anaheim for so long and on some bad Anaheim teams the last few years. And now he's like, I've had to refocus, adjust to different styles of wingers and line mates. And for whatever reason in the postseason, him, Connor Brown, obviously Corey Perry, they've really stepped up. And Matthias Janmark's the other one. We jokingly call him the janitor around here. Like he scored 2 goals all season, guys. He didn't even shoot one past an opposition goal. He had an empty netter, and then another one bounced off his button in. And then he buried a couple goals, like a few weeks into the playoffs. So it's funny. These guys, they wake up in the postseason, and Edmonton's depth, which has been something that a lot of pundits have said, is a concern, has actually been really good. Really, really good for them all playoffs long.
Tom, I look at the teams remaining in the playoffs right now, and there's something called the asshole factor. And that is, the Florida Panthers have the most assholes in the league. Second most might be the Oilers, because you've got Corey Perry and you've got Evander Kane, who is the king of being the asshole.
Yep.
And he's a bull in a china shop. He comes out after missing the entire regular season, and he is. I mean, every night I look at the Oilers stat line. He's got 5 hits, 6 hits, 7 hits, and he's scoring goals. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's been a difference maker in the series and in this playoffs. And I don't think the Stars have enough of those guys. And the one thing that might give the Oilers an advantage besides McDavid and Draisaitl is the asshole factor.
Yeah, I love that term, the asshole factor, because, yeah, he would be at the tippy top of the list for sure. He's an impact player and has been for a long time, but he needs to be dialed in mentally. He needs to be healthy, and that's usually when he's engaged, and you get him playing at his peak. And to his credit, he has come back and played that way. We didn't know what kind of player he would be coming back, missing the entire regular season. You want to talk about a pure a-hole thing to say? I mean, in January when they did an update on him and they said, oh, by the way, he had to have a knee procedure. He goes, yeah, I'm pretty good coming off the couch. Like, that's a jackass thing to say. But at the same time, he goes and he proves it. So he did it when he came to the Oilers from San Jose and the dispute he had with the Sharks. And then he goes and misses an entire season and takes him 2 games, and he's right back to being peak Evander Kane. So he's been good. He's had some help for sure. I'll throw Trent Frederick in there. Corey Perry has been, that old Corey Perry, classic Corey Perry. Zach Hyman, guys, is leading the NHL in hits in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's
he's
wild.
The nicest guy in the world, but I guess a jackass on the ice and tough to play against. And Kasperi Kapanen has been another one. Podkolzin can be feisty.
Podkolzin's always been that way, so that's expected.
And the one thing I would add to that too is if those guys are playing physical and they're on the Dallas defense, especially Heiskanen, then I think that could create some space for the Oilers and especially create some turnovers. And we'll see if they could take advantage. And that's something that they did to Vegas. I mean, every opportunity they had to hit Alex Pietrangelo, they went after him and they were relentless. And they didn't just do it for one period. They stuck with it, every single game. So if they continue that, those assholes and that asshole factor led by Evander Kane, then I think they're putting themselves into a good spot to win.
Well, watch out for the Jamie Benn super punch, because I'm sure that's going to be coming.
Oh yeah.
And we have to factor in that Cody Ceci is on the Stars, so whoever has Cody Ceci usually wins the series, right?
Yeah. Well, we're joking today on all our shows. We're going, well, if this series goes 7, I'd be really worried if you're an Oiler fan, because you got Pete DeBoer, who's perfect in Game 7, and then you got Cody Ceci. So you got a couple of Game 7 assassins over in green and black. So that's kind of worrisome. So if Edmonton wants to take care of business, get it done by the 6th game at least.
You seeing Jake Ottinger as being a big fulcrum of this series for you, Tom, in his performance? Because he was not great, obviously, against the Oilers last time around.
Yeah, and I feel like if they can find ways to pick up on tendencies, then yeah, I think that'll be a key. If Ottinger can come up with a big save and kind of be the opposite of what Kemper and Aiden Hill were in rounds 1 and 2, then that would swing things in a big way in favor of the Stars. The other thing the Oilers need to do as well is figure out how to stop Mikko Rantanen, because the guy has been an absolute beast this postseason. Nobody's figured out how to stop him, but they play him physically. There was that first game he played here when he got traded where Jake Wallman laid him out pretty good. I think Max Jones got to him, and they kind of kept him in check. I think Stu Skinner made a really nice save on him that night as well. But if they can find a way to solve Rantanen and that finish line, and then the Oilers at the other end can get to work and do their thing, establish the way they want to play, then they're going to be in a good spot. One thing, guys, watching this series, I'll note about the Oilers, keep an eye on, is they generally, and they did this the last couple postseasons, they might start a little bit slow, but they find out and discover tendencies from the opposition, and Edmonton seems to get better as series progress. So that's another thing to keep tabs on.
We'll look for that. Hey, Tom, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. We'll catch you down the road.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, guys.
Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Tom.
All right, so some quick news, and we'll just go for a minute. Brad Shaw's on New Jersey. I didn't see him going there, but at least he doesn't have to go
yet, but it was Dave Pagnotta from the 4th period indicated that Shaw was going there. That's a great ad for the Devils, especially for a team that, I think defensively needs some additional structures in place. I don't think there's a better assistant coach that's out there. So it's a big move. It's a bigger move than I think other people might realize for the New Jersey Devils here.
Yeah, I think that's something that's plagued them. They haven't had great defense, so I think it's a smart thing. Mike, as far as the wrap up with the Leafs, I mean, my takeaway is, we kind of think Marner's gone now because of what's happened in the playoffs. But again, I think this is a big offseason for Brad Treliving because he hasn't wowed me as the GM. I'll be honest. He hasn't.
Well, we have to factor in that he was under the, handcuffs of Brendan Shanahan because, I've come to find out, and this is not any kind of big revelation, that when he got the job in 2023 after they fired Dubas, he was basically told you can't trade Marner and you can't trade Nylander. So it's like you bring back the same core that has choked for 9 years, and what do you expect? I mean, you changed the deck chairs in the Titanic, but the ship still sunk. So, and I'm not blaming Marner individually, but it was just a group that didn't work. You had too much skill, not enough snarl, and against a team of jerks like, and I say that affectionately in the Florida Panthers. They play the game the way it needs to be played to win in the playoffs, and they did it. And the Leafs didn't show up in the two biggest games of the year to the point of absolute embarrassment, and it's going to result in Brendan Shanahan. If he doesn't get the job in the Islanders, his contract will not be renewed. He will be, it's not a firing, but it's as good as a firing because he failed. You're muted, Anthony. You're muted.
It just feels to me, Mike, that this seems to be lined up almost too perfectly here for the Islanders.
Right.
I really do feel that way. And my feeling is, again, the connection between Shanahan and Lou Lamoriello might also mean that Lou is not – he's not necessarily completely out of the picture
He's
here.
not fully out.
In regards to that, yeah.
Yeah, he could be a senior. He may accept a senior advisor role because – but I said it jokingly in the chat, but it actually makes a little bit of sense. Shanahan goes to the Islanders as team president. What do they need? They have needed scoring. They've needed an offensive infusion. Can you imagine a reverse Tavares and Marner going to the Islanders following Shanahan?
They don't have the money. That's the problem.
Well, they might have to trade somebody, or we know Bo Horvat may start the season on LTIR because
that may be the way
at the World Championships. But
that could be the way. That's true. So talking about those jerks in Florida, I got to tell you, there's a vote of no confidence for me with Carolina. Carolina, 5 minutes into that game, was completely off their game. Florida took it exactly where they wanted to, and Carolina was responding at every moment. And Florida had to go into the locker room after the first period thinking, we got them.
Yeah, and it was to me, it was a classic road game for Florida. That's all. And that's, again, even if Carolina wins game 2, Carolina's already on the back foot. They just are. And their whole style, the way they play Carolina, is designed for, it's a if you can disrupt what they do defensively, I don't think they have an answer for it. And that's the thing that Florida has, is that, again, it's the old story. We look at that clip of Paul Maurice saying, pound their bleeping D, right from jump. That's what they did.
Which is what they did to Toronto, and by Game 7 they couldn't move. But the funny thing is, Carolina in the first 5 minutes of that game tried to be Florida. They tried to do the Jordan Stahl was running people and Svechnikov was running people. Svechnikov almost takes Bobrovsky's head off. Yep. And the worst possible thing that could have been done in that series was Gostisbehere shooting it at Marchand. Now he's got a target on his friggin' back for the rest of that series. He will regret doing that.
Gostisbehere, I mean, I still remember his time. He had his moments where
he's emotional. He's an emotional guy.
He does get emotional, and it was a high level of frustration, and they got under their skin, and it's going to be tough for Carolina. I mean, I still think Carolina definitely has a puncher's chance in this series. I picked Florida in 7, but it may be sooner. But it's entirely possible. I think it could end sooner than that. But Carolina's got to respond. They go down 0-2. This series,
they go down 0-2. They're in deep.
They go down 0-2. This gets very potentially ugly here. Where in this case, Rob Brindamore may not be able to deny that his team was swept this time.
Playoff Freddie showed up yesterday, and I love the stat. The last time the Carolina Hurricanes won a game in an Eastern Conference final, the game-winning goal was scored by Rod Brindamore. 2006 Eastern Game 7 against Buffalo.
Yeah, if the second round is Toronto's bugaboo, this is the round for this iteration for the Carolina Hurricanes.
But if there was ever a Martin Gerber situation, this is it. Because I'm telling you, Freddie in the reverse RVH goes from being a big goalie to a small goalie. And who shoots a backhand top shelf over shoulder? That shouldn't be available. That shouldn't.
Plus, he had all day. Then nobody. He was standing there for 3 seconds, and nobody
stayed down. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And things have lined up for Carolina. Home ice.
Yep.
Rest.
You got rest.
Yep.
Everything was there.
And Florida was banged up after 2 series against Tampa and Toronto. Lundell had to leave the pregame skate because of some. But he still drew Aho into a stupid penalty,
and he got a little blood on him, and he got a penalty, and yeah.
I mean, when will these players learn? It's not the initial. The initial penalty, it's the response. It's always the response.
Always in the playoffs, it's a response. Exactly. It's always.
Yeah, Carolina needs to play a different goalie. They need to also sit back and actually not react to some of the things Florida does and just play their own game. That's what they actually need to do. But I don't know. They're so far off their game now. I don't know if they'll get it back.
Well, here's the thing. I think because Florida has had moments in the previous period
stuff at times
where they'll kind of move. They'll back off a little bit, and they're trying to conserve it, and they conserve their energy a little bit. And I can see Carolina responding in Game 2 with a win. But my concern is going forward is just it's just getting taken like that in Game 1. It's not a good sign.
Well, what I'd like to know is why did Marchand get the game? He got a double minor. First of all, it was a fight. Gostisbehere and him was a fight. It was a 4 and a 2. He got the double minor for roughing. Gostisbehere got 2 for roughing, and he got the game misconduct. It's like, okay, why? Why? Because he attacked a guy who shot the puck at him?
Yes.
I don't think the referee saw the puck being shot at him.
Forcing Mike Augello to defend Brad Marchand. Oh, he's a Maple Leaf.
Because he's a future Maple Leaf. He's a future
Maple Leaf. He's a Maple Leaf. It's done.
Future Maple Leaf. That's why, Anthony.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's just spectacular. But no, I think it's because he's Brad Marchand. I think that's just the answer. He's got that rep, and that's just pretty much the way it is. But we'll see where all this goes. We'll see what happens with the NHL personnel. There'll probably be, by the Sunday show, there'll probably be some hires at this point. And, we'll go from there. But that's it. That's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.